What's the worst case? It would be Israel using one of its nuclear weapons on Tehran, and it's in the scenarios. They started with nukes in 1961. They helped the apartheid regime get nukes in the late 70s. They haven't used it, but we have a very terrible situation in which even the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, is encouraging the so-called Greater Israel Project. In other words, just take as much as you can. He said they could take it all, which is from the Euphrates to the Nile. That's a big chunk of Saudi Arabia and Iraq and, of course, Jordan and Syria and part of Egypt now.
So Patrick Bond is repeating a Trumpism, a moot point, at the same time that he's deflecting blame. Not forgetting that the United States had a Atoms for Peace program way back in the 1950s that assisted South Africa with its own nuclear bomb capabilities. But the moot point involving Ambassador Huckabee's frivolous statements that he made, Tucker Carlson Show, where he repeated essentially a far-right extreme position that some religious communities might utter, that Israel is entitled to all the land mentioned in the Bible, all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates. No one in any relevant position of authority believes the so-called Greater Israel Project, which is really an invention of the Soviet Union and various other entities, the Arab League, for instance. The crux of the matter really is areas A, B, and C in the West Bank, particularly the issue status quo of Jerusalem, where there are legitimate claims made by both parties to that holy city. And let's just put it this way. I've yet to hear any public debate on the issue of Jerusalem for decades. People have been talking past each other, and it's just a litany of abuse from the United Nations, creating one fiction after the next. So the issue of the nukes, imminent threat posed by ICBMs and the Iran industrial complex, where they ramped up production after the 12-day war and possess 460 kilograms of enriched uranium. The only purpose of 60% enriched uranium is for military purposes. I would like to think that my own country, if a neighboring state like Lesotho, for instance, had a foreign policy of the destruction of South Africa and was experimenting with nuclear technologies and producing intercontinental warheads, I would like to think that my country would take proactive steps rather than wait for a missile with a nuke to arrive on my head in Cape Town.